somewhere in the dark dungeon, the girl stood in the middle of the room and was completely shackled in the rest of the chains, which clutched her hands very tightly. The unknown girl ran down the corridor straight into the dungeons from calling for her sister. This girl belonged to save the chained sister, that is, because she was poisoned with poison, and the girl just had a pill with an antidote. When the protagonist fell out, this antidote got even worse. The unknown girl explained that it's not a cure at all. It is she who temporarily lays her body of fiery roots. She will feel her insides mend with such pain that she will wish to die herself. And also the last spiritual fire root will finally be hers. She will now become the head of the Tan sect. Also standing next to the girl was her master. It was the protagonist's favorite person, who betrayed her for spiritual roots, and also the sister who betrayed her. Her body was engulfed in fire. The master and sister were shocked because they had just taken the fire root out of her. They realized that it was not good. They had to pay the spiritual root quickly. The protagonist pulled out her umbrella. When she tried to attack the man, he in turn stabbed her with a dagger. At last dying, the protagonist apologized to her father and mother. Because their ungrateful daughter and failed to fulfill their wishes in the end, their sector fell into the hands of the villain. If she is reborn in this world, she will definitely become the strongest, and make sure that Tan Feng died a horrible death. Suddenly the girl opened her eyes and noticed two men. The first of them asked if Nangang was already dead. The second man confirmed that she could not be killed yet. His lordship ordered the girl to be sent to the residence alive, so it's worth checking her out first. The protagonist wondered if she was alive, but it wasn't her body. The man who approached her remarked that she was indeed alive, but she must still be at the town leader's residence or they're all dead. But the girl wasn't so simple. She grabbed the man and started choking him. When the other also tried to attack the girl, she used her spiritual skill. Her cultivation is so weak that it can't withstand her techniques. Therefore, she wasn't able to destroy them properly. Then the men immediately began and wanted to attack the girl, for her ladyship had said that she must give this girl alive to the head of the family. The protagonist drew her sword, lit Vu what to start defending her body. She couldn't just die like that, having just been given a new life. So she began to use cultivation to discard all men. Well, after a while, when she was able to produce her umbrella, she realized she could no longer control her spell. I'm a body too weak to hold it. This body can't withstand the cult's use of forceful techniques. She needed to find the virgin herbs and find out what happened, so she was able to escape quietly. But after being badly injured and impaled on a huge boulder, she touched the stones and realized it was actually a warm wall, and somewhere close by was a hot spring. When she found it, she decided to take her clothes off and bathe in it. Well, suddenly she noticed another man who was also washing in this spring. It was the 9th prince of the Black Feather Empire, Yin Bailey. Zhu was just about to attack him, although she suspected that this man was sent to finish her off, so she had to kill him as soon as possible while he was injured, otherwise she wouldn't have a chance. Well, a man's friend uses the technique when a girl was about to attack him. She knew right away it wasn't the technique of a man who wanted to kill her. The man pulled her closer to him and directly decided to ask her who she was and who sent her. Well, suddenly their dialogue was interrupted by other people shouting nearby. They were shouting for the main character to run away, and they realized that she couldn't run far away. For some reason, the protagonist thought that those bandits who are shouting near them came not for her, but for this man. So her head came up with the idea to start calling these men. The 9th prince decided to shut that girl's mouth and told her not directly that these people came for him, and if they catch her, then they would also not let her leave. But the protagonist didn't know how innocent the 9th prince was. Perhaps by selling him to them, she would be rewarded. Then the man came closer and remarked in her ear that she had the divine weapon of the umbrella of 9,000 balls. Zhu wondered how the prince knew about it. Actually, he just sensed the artifact, and it turned out to be hers. But the man told her that her artifact would be of more interest to those men than he was. Then the prince suggested that they defeat them together, or the other option is to die together. So it was up to her to decide how long to stay. She knew from his clothes that he was not a poor man, and it might be possible to get the money from him. So she agreed to help him. He must promise her that he would do her a favor in the future, when he needs her, no matter what. He agreed without a second thought, and already he was ready to attack her. Here come the bandits. They looked into the water and saw nothing because our protagonists had time to dive into the water to escape. The man was immediately surprised that if the protagonist knew about the underwater passage, she could just leave him. But the girl explained that she was not one to leave half-dead people in trouble, so she wished him good luck and decided to leave. But she suddenly got a bad headache. She remembered the family and called them rubbish that to sacrifice the skyhead kind better martial arts. Someone's voice was telling her all this. So she lost the building and the man realized it was too soon for them to say goodbye. Nanggong Shui to the strength of the 8th level refinement at the age of 17. She is the genius of the family. The girl also told her brother that she is very happy, and everyone says that her powers will get her into the academy, and her brother himself can go to the Black Feather Academy. And sometime later when the girl got into the academy, some guys called her nothing pet. She couldn't show herself properly when she had the best ice spirit root, and the title of genius. Also, one man grabbed her face. The girl realized that this man had destroyed her roots on purpose, and he did it on purpose. The man was saying that she was so talented, and she shouldn't have spoken out against him. A woman like her should be expendable years of training other practitioners. The girls kept pushing that she was there on the pretty girl of the family, and let the brothers play with her too. After all, the lord of the city just needs her alive. And after all that, she finally woke up and realized it was just a memory of the first owner of the body, framed by the men she loved and resented. She was just like the protagonist in her previous life's body, and since she's taken over this body, she'll protect whoever the previous owner of the body wanted to protect for her. Just then an assistant ran into the room, who was already holding a bowl of water. She immediately asked the protagonist to drink tea to warm herself, and she would go get the king. Zhu wondered which king he was talking about, and not so much is known about this owner's past body. But this girl is the eldest woman in the family, and the family is one of the 4 bigger clans of the Black Pirate Kingdom. The assistant explained that it was now in the 16th year of tinhood, and their prince is the 9th son of the ruler. The main character is not unlikely to believe that she's actually transported back 200 years, so not the current head of the cult must be a Ruo. The abilities of this body the protagonist is currently sitting in are too pathetic, and with her current level of past possession, she couldn't even manage to deal with the VEI, let alone defeat the Thane. So the protagonist immediately began to hide and decided to run away. Assistant, of course, would be puzzled where she just ran. But the main heroine realized that first she had to find a place of spiritual power and recover. Later, the assistant came to her young master and informed him that the girl had just run away, and now the assistant did not understand where she was. The prince was asked directly by another aide who the girl was, if he needed help finding her. But he took a negative. He knew perfectly well that there was no need, for she was of no use to him. The aide, of course, was perplexed because after his return, these people want to present 100 pairs of class and constantly watch over the prince. Then his return, the aide figured out 2 more spies. So the prince explained that he would keep an eye on them. He'll let them know that this shy prince is not dangerous. Then the aide reminded his young master that he was not being taken seriously by the emperor, who had sent him to some small town to do some nonsense. His Highness had been running all over the empire for so many years, and it was too much. But the young prince offered to visit a new guest in their home. The girl herself, on the other hand, was sitting up and already cultivating. She didn't understand why the aura absorption didn't hit the spiritual root. She was beginning to suspect that it had been absorbed by the Barth's umbrella. And the jade token she didn't understand, since when did she have such a thing in her? She tried her best to get it out of her. She realized it wasn't a free token just for giving aura, but she couldn't let it out, and it's a stubborn thing. That's when she noticed the prince. She did not understand where he had come from at all, for she did not remember him. She decided to go straight down to him, and she noticed that she already knew it was the principal everyone was talking about. Zhu also noticed that the sleepless boy who had been threatening her cave had finally met her. Suddenly, the man grabbed the girl, thereby tearing her clothes, and she did the same. His aide immediately reported that His Highness was too weak. He had spent a lot of energy to return and bring the girl back to consciousness, so she couldn't accuse him of extortion. So the girl immediately hit the Prince of Salvation, and she apologized for the misunderstanding. After all, he got her out of there, and she is grateful to him in return. She also hopes he hasn't forgotten his promise. Then the man decided to ask her directly what she wanted. She replied that such a worthy prince, a certain one, would not want to get involved with her, a commoner. When she would leave the mansion, with whom and how she could get in touch, That was the question that interested her. Very, she decided to get her green ring, and said that in the future, if there are any questions, just need to show this ring. When the girl picked it up, she noticed right away that it was of good quality, but not magical. She told the man that she would take it as proof of that, and so hoped the prince had not deceived her. Already in the Nangang family, young master family 5th level Qi Wen refinement, he did not understand how the guys managed to give the losers an escape. These were not at the same level of perfection. And the favor replied that I don't know myself, for mistress is not a secret technician. She couldn't match a dozen of their blokes. The young gentleman was very angry, and the first Mrs. Rumi tried to calm him down. The woman replied that the head of the clan was eagerly awaiting this girl to use her body as a furnace. That's why they want her alive. Kazala didn't lie about her sister getting married. A gentleman came in who called himself the Mose. He didn't understand how they could send his sister. I mean, they know damn well that their head is a kind of demon, who eats people without blinking. Then the first mistress replied that giving his sister to the head is a great happiness, and their family, so don't be foolish, no one else is worthy of such a blessing. The boy was angry because they never had any good intentions for his sister, and all these years they just wanted them dead, and now they wanted to kill them. So the boy answered directly that he would just go and look for his sister. Then another new-dye gentleman ordered his guards to arrest Mo because he had stolen the family religion, and it was an indecent offense. Also, the young gentleman ordered his guards to beat the boy until he confessed. Suddenly his sister came into the room and ordered it to stop. Zhu immediately explained to everyone present in this hall that if they even tried his ammunition, they would regret it immediately. Young Madame Stella was beyond bewildered and didn't understand where the main character had just appeared from. But the guy himself was directly surprised at how much strength Zhu had to come back here. She went straight to her brother. That he had been looking for her for a long time, but somehow now that she was on the doorstep, he was not happy. But the only thing she wanted was for the young master to be released. Then the brother ordered the guards to come after this girl. After all, she had framed their clan. She was the one who ruined the family's reputation. Of course, the little boy approached his mistress and informed her that everything was all right. No need to provoke them. But the woman stood her ground and she realized there was no need to panic. She had a plan. And the aura she has been restoring for half a day was obtained by a jade token. When Wei takes her seriously, she's afraid that she won't be able to withstand even the raw techniques of the Tan sect. Still, she will oppose him. After all, we need to find out what the limits of this body are. So she stated very loudly that they had committed no crime and broke no family rules. And she'll see who dares Istova today. The young mistress quickly ordered her assistant to call her turn as head of the family. When the assistant came to the head of the family, she told him that the first mistress was calling him because the younger mistress had returned. The daughter of the Ling clan was surprised that the protagonist had returned here alive. While head of the family, no misunderstanding what this girl is up to again, and what kind of tricks she is trying to play now. Don't wait for Wei and deal with her sister directly. Then in the main, the heroine decided to fight her brother, thereby using her jade token to wound him. She managed to take his sword perfectly. And what a huge misunderstanding the guy was, and how he was able to do such a thing at once, and that it just was witchcraft. But at that moment, also the head and his daughter came in. The head of the clan decided not to interfere. After all, he was very interested in what tricks the protagonist had, and it would be better to see now than to suffer later. Wei table and many shards flew straight at the girl. The clan head immediately realized that the man had just used a technique from the Shadow Tree assassination. But Shui in turn also used ball attacks to repel this technique. After that, her brother was defeated. Wei couldn't believe to the end that he had been defeated by his sister, but they were decided to be interrupted by the head of the family. After all, the relatives were fighting among themselves, and it was a great shame for their family. Wei tried to explain that it was all the beginnings of Shui, who used the dirty technique on him. But the head of the family asked the guy to shut up. After all, he lost to her, and he doesn't even have the right to consider himself a victim. Another sage believed that even if Shui's spiritual roots were destroyed, she was still able to fight back. Tu Wei clearly didn't underestimate this woman. However, he didn't understand how she could acquire such skills in just one night. Also, some other guys thought that one fine might former genius turned into a scum, and also they didn't understand how the girl managed to get out. She herself realized that the original owner had suffered such humiliation. She was the best in the clan. but she was treated worse than a dog. She realized that she would never let herself or Mo get hurt again. Heads asked the girl to bring herself in order, and Pussy and her brother will take her to the head's mansion, and he will personally forget everything that happened here today. But she had her defense backed up by a boy who didn't want to send his sister away. Zhu made it perfectly clear that she wasn't going to get up the owner of the family as an oven. She could have a few more. After all, she clearly didn't run away by pure will. Before she escaped, she gained special powers. Now you can use the spell without having an aura. She can easily handle multiple people at the Qi purification level. Wei again called his sister dirty. After all, it was still unclear what dirty techniques she had learned. Well, then the girl was very quick to shut him up and offer to put up another fight, if he's not happy about something. The head really didn't feel the fluctuations in her aura when she made the check. Therefore, he couldn't even imagine what kind of powers she could have obtained and how powerful her patron was. So replied that she was unwilling to go to the mansion of the lord of the city, whether she was sure she could win the competition on behalf of the family. But without any hesitation, she replied that she would win without a doubt. If conditions allowed, she would like to enter the Black Pirate Academy. Of course, from the first they were surprised. After all, she was rubbish who couldn't take part in the academy. Plus, it costs money. Only those who made it to the top 30 Red Feather City are eligible to enter the Black Feather Academy. Love joining the Black Pen Academy. Receive a quality increase in their skills. Black Feather Academy is the place, the very aura realm of the Purple Moon, anyone with a spiritual root can be to increase their skills to the max. It's also where there is a chance to get advice from immortals. A renowned Mahachna elder, a Shin elder, was able to reach the pinnacle of the Dhyana stage in just 5 years, a Black Feather academician, under the mentorship of the immortals. And even the girl realized that it seems that entering the Black Feather Academy is the fastest way to become stronger. Zhu decided to ask which immortals he was talking about. Then his brother explained that they belonged to the higher realms. They were under the guidance of the revered Tang clan saint, and the girl herself does not deserve to know their names. The heroine couldn't believe that these were Tan cult people. After all, it is impossible the academy is created with the Tan sect. She must get there, and not only for the sake of the previous owner of this body. So she told the head that she was definitely going to the Black Pen Academy, so he decided to give her a chance. If she can beat the kids selected at the Black Feather Academy for the family this year, he'll let her take part in the trials. If she fails, they'll both be sent by her assistant to the family's head mansion. That was what the protagonist agreed to. The main character also explained to the boys that if she won, they would have to give her 10,000 gold bars. The head immediately replied that there was no problem with that. They will see anyway in 10 days for the competition. He realized that the girl had a big lineage, but he's afraid she's really prepared. The people around were only discussing how the main character would compete in the strongest clan streams competition in 10 days. But above all, they didn't know that she was scum. Even if she was a gem before, now she can't fight anymore. The assistant also informed the 9th prince that it was the girl who beat up her own brother as soon as she got home. The whole town is talking about it. So the principal asked how much gold the aide was carrying. The boy replied that he alone had received an intake from the palace of 2 chests that is about 2 million. The principal asked me to leave it all to the girl. Of course the assistant was surprised. After all, he didn't think the girl deserved it. After all, it was the girl glorified weaker body speed that had lost her powers. She was a dotty loser, and he wanted to give her all the money. If he stood his ground, he made it clear that his decisions were not to be questioned. Then the assistant decided to carry out his master's order after all. The people around only laughed with the helper. He was going to give so much money. For some woman he didn't know. Zhu was already sitting in the room. She realized that this room was the poorest place in the entire mansion. The spiritual energy here was the weakest. Therefore, she was afraid that the weakness of the first body mistress was not only due to the loss and spiritual roots. The girl was immediately approached by her little helper and told her that there are rumors outside that she's going to be in the fight, and a lot of people are betting on her older brother, and hardly anyone is betting on her. She said it was a given. I mean, who would bet on someone like her because everyone knows what she was like, but no one expects her tricks and techniques that she has learned. The boy also said that a guy bet 1 million gold pieces on the girl, which even the main character was very surprised about. She immediately realized who had ordered it. She was very glad he had done it. The protagonist grabbed the assistant's boy by the hand, because when she first saw him, she immediately thought he was poisoned. But she didn't expect it to be so deep inside him. It soaked into his internal organs. That's why he didn't expect to be poisoned in his mother's womb. The girl took a needle and poked it against the boy's arm. She ordered him to relax immediately, and to take a deep breath and close his eyes. They slowly inhaled the air. It was clear that there was no time to delay. I had to buy some weed to keep the boy alive, and she's due in 10 days, so we need to prepare a concealed weapon. Already walking through the market, I overheard the main character's dialogue, as the vendor was saying that the man had a good eye, for it is the best medicine to strengthen ki and restore blood. To use it, and you need to use magic centennial lotus and wormwood. The century-old magic lotus is particularly valuable, and it's the rarest of all, so the vendor is the only one selling it within a 100-mile radius. 100-year-old magic lotus. The girl realized that the seller wanted to send his customers straight to heaven. She walked right up to the prince and touched his shoulder, withdrawing him. She advised him not to give in to her entreaties. The salesman is trying to deceive him. Not only does this remedy have no effect on strengthening and nourishing the blood, one thing is worse. The prince then inquired of the girl herself what this lotus would do. She explained that this lotus would kill him. In one medicine, the seller put centennial lotus and wormwood. What's more, lotus is short-lived. It can be harvested within 7 days, and 100 years on the eyes of the names. The salesman immediately got angry and tried to kick the girl out. She's trying to ruin his business. Well, also notice that his shop specializes in mixing and selling tainted herbs. If he does kill someone, it's not her who'll point out his mistake next time. It'll be other people from other families. Suddenly, another girl appeared. It was the shop owner. Bin, and she was 17 years old. The protagonist was well aware that this shopkeeper's girlfriend hates her first body owner. After all, her fiancé's son used to be the fiancé of that body. She's a Neva and she won't let go. Bin started laughing because she couldn't believe that the main character was still alive. After all, the girl thought that after she was robbed of her fiancé and made a scum, she died in her home. Zhu decided not to show her face. She replied that the groom had chosen her. That's why there's no need for her to follow. The main character decided not to solve the problem in the shop after all. She suggested that the principal should just walk out of here. Bin, out of such insolence, got angry, and then ordered her favor teacher to Igor, so that she would know how to slander her honest people. A man used fire to attack the heroine. She realized that she couldn't stop the gold core level practitioner now, but unexpectedly, even for her jade token was able to match other people's auras. The prince himself was watching from the sidelines, who was surprised that the girl had an unusual physique. She managed to dodge the golden core practice attack without any damage. Bin saw that it didn't work, and her servant couldn't do her bidding, and she decided to throw the knife straight at the girl's back. Bin was surprised when the protagonist managed to repel her knife. She couldn't believe that some scum was able to fend her off to the general, and surely the unknown man behind her had helped her was her words. The protagonist realized that her jade token inside could only absorb the aura, but not the cold weapon. The man was the only one who could help, but she didn't understand how it was possible since he was weakened. Bin had no trouble believing that she could be beaten. Then she ordered the 2 men to be tied up. After all, today she would make an example of them, so that everyone would know what it was like to oppose the Ouyang family. Suddenly, a man appeared behind the girl, a young master of her family, 23 years old. He ordered the girl to stop. He immediately paid his respects to the 9th prince. He also apologized because his sister was still young and did not know how to behave. Bin could believe from where Shui was able to make the 9th prince fall in love with her. But with her older brother, he immediately started scolding her. After all, she'd just done something stupid. And today she's locked in her room, and she also had to write 10 confessions as punishment before she could get out. Zhu that the 9th prince had not been seen by the emperor, but it was unexpected that she was curious, and perhaps she should have been gentler with him. Prince had decided to leave this shop after all. Bin directly asked her brother, why was the 9th prince this trashy? After all, he was very close to her and even saved her. Then her brother replied that there is watch your words, for this man had bet 1 million gold on this girl. A little later, the boys went to a place to eat. The prince decided to treat Shui, which she was very happy about, noting that she was just a subordinate and just helped to find out the crooks, and the prince didn't need to show such favor. When the girl began to look closer at the prince, She saw how pale and sickly he was, and so she was probably well aware that he had decided to find himself a cheap doctor like herself. She answered him directly that his pale complexion bruises under his eyes. Most likely he has been sick for a long time with something. His case is one of overwork caused by general weakness. Usually such a situation arises either from the mother's womb or the strength of the soul is too great for the body. But judging from his damaged body, it's not from too much spiritual power. The problem was during his mother's time. After all these words, the prince himself was very surprised. How does this girl know about all this? When she touched his shoulder, and remarked that it could all be cured. Answer knew something about medicine. She could temporarily ease the discomfort of his body. Right now she was tight on funds, so she was afraid that she could not buy the necessary herbs now. Then the man said that he had bet 1 million gold pieces on her. Besides, she is the eldest mistress of her family, but still he inquired how much she was short of her medicine. She said that even if she wins, the gold still won't go into her pocket. What's more, she's nothing but scum. She's nothing to herself. Besides, she has to support her little brother. And the money for his treatment had to be spent, which ruined all the expenses. He agreed to give the girl 500 zlotys, and she could take them from his assistant. Zhu decided to put on more of a show, and pointed out that she needed something to feed her little brother on. The prince fell for her tricks after all, and agreed to give her 5,000 gold pieces. Then she knelt down, and she made a mental note that she would be sure to find a medicinal herb, and if she couldn't help him, then he would take her life in return. A little later, my sister was buying her little brother some nice fabric, which was perfect for him, for his new outfit. His brother didn't fully understand what his sister was up to. She had already bought him 5 pairs of shoes and 6 new outfits. But she was just savvy that, as the young second gentleman of the family, his appearance should match his position. On the way home, the boys met some sweets, and then the main character asked his little brother if he wanted to get these sugar berries. Of course he answered in the negative because he didn't like that kind of thing. Then Shu remembered her past when she was sitting in the tree. She hid these sweets from Ruo, the one who brings her the sweets every time they come here. But she's never been able to get them. Those of her clan can't be that weak. If she just wanted the candy, she should have just climbed the tree. At some point, the girl wanted to climb the tree, but she couldn't do it, and she fell down in awe. And traveling to the present time, I understood why she was betrayed by Ruo. While passing a few market stalls, the protagonist noticed a herb that was the Immortal's herb. This herb appears once every 1,000 years. When she asked the salesman how much the ripoff was worth, he said 50 gold pieces. She was happy to buy it. After a while also she saw the stone. It was well spent for creating a hidden weapon, and she took it. After the protagonist bought herself a stone, she was met by her family's doctor, Chinru, who immediately noticed that Shui was stupid. She buys trinkets. She's seen it herself, buying all kinds of rubbish. But when the protagonist looked at what this doctor's servant was carrying, it was a poor quality herb, low-level uselessness, losing its aura, and also an artificially grown fake. And that's why it surprised her the most. Already in the evening at home in the warm water of the main facet, again noticed that all the herbs she had bought worked really well, and her body was beginning to recover little by little. The aura in the jade is the strength of the chi refining level. Within 3 days she will create a hidden weapon, using the stone she bought today. In the mansion itself, the servants were discussing how one girl had beaten the lord as well. One also heard that the 9th prince had bet 1 million on the young lady. His older brother Shui was watching all this, knowing full well that the techniques his sister was using were not something any human could do. And his father was right. She had some kind of artifact that he himself had never seen. After a while, the protagonist prepared a pool for the prince. After an awkward pause, the prince asked the girl directly if she was just going to watch him change and wash. Zhu was even embarrassed after that, but she replied that she just wanted to see if her herbs would work, and she has no dirty thoughts. When only the girl wanted to turn away from what I was watching the prince change clothes, and she accidentally tripped and started falling into the pool. Then the prince reacted in time to praise her. Already at night when the girl was returning home, someone decided to suddenly attack her. It was her brother, who decided to sneak attack his sister and not compete with her. Without talking, he decided to use his secret technique of palm revealing the ground. Shu was also uneasy. She decided to use her ice knives, thus was able to pierce her brother's heart. That attack didn't kill him. It only destroyed his cultivation. Now she will also watch him to see what he can do. After that, she turned around and her brother vaporized into liquid. Back at the mansion, the head of the family didn't understand why Wei hadn't returned. He'd been missing for 3 days. No one could figure out where he was. But his sister remembered him talking about how he was going to destroy Shui before the competition. So she even pointed her finger at Shui and assured everyone present that she was the one who killed their big brother. Zhu explained to everyone that she'd never seen her big brother anywhere, and if she didn't believe the nonsense Lin had told them. They're fools. There's no way her older brother's disappearance means she killed him. And if she herself disappeared without a trace, then they wouldn't have to worry about her. Zhu walked closer to Lin and asked about the evidence that indicates that Zhu saw exactly the older brother. Lin knew that only Zhu hated her brother. Zhu replied that she never attacks weaklings. The young mistress got angry after what the protagonist said about her son being a weakling. A great elder of the family appeared. He had the highest level of Jindan. His head met his, and since the shearer was away for a long time, and to the family was embroiled in a blood feud, so the man asked their meeting to restore justice. The encounter warned the protagonist that his weapon gets rid of the soul of any cultivator below the golden core level, so she should take a good look before answering. Zui that even if the man had a high level, he wouldn't be able to do anything to her nascent soul. When the girl was asked again if she killed Wei, she bluntly and flatly said no. Zhu was able to absorb this artifact, and so she was able to deceive the elders. The first mistress didn't believe it when she touched the girl. She asked her directly what had happened to her. It was clear from the looks of it that Shui just couldn't absorb that blow. She realized that even though her soul with me holds the power of artifact, her meridians are damaged. And apparently she was wrong. She didn't realize whether the hidden weapon had really killed Wei that day, but First Mistress didn't want to believe that Shu had nothing to do with it. Then the young girl replied that they could have done it themselves, from which the First Mistress fell into a rage and wanted to already attack Shui, but the chief tried to stop her, who said that she had killed their son. After all, it's a fact, so she'll have to calm down. Shu showed the elders the ring. You noticed that everyone saw his artifact not work on the girl, so she didn't kill anyone. But the First Mistress still didn't want to believe this information to the end. She wanted to attack the young girl again. But then the Ninth Prince came along and threw a fan at her. It hit her right in the face and discouraged her from attacking anyone. Everyone greeted the Ninth Prince together. The boy himself informed everyone around him. Shui is curing his illness, and whoever harms her will be sorry. Then the girl herself decided to stand up for her family, and pointed out that it's okay. I mean, the mother's just worried about her son going missing. Resolved personally decided to apologize to the Ninth Prince. His son died and his wife injured her head. Then the principal said that if your elder's sick wife, you should just lock her away. Not everyone will tolerate the mentally ill. So the Ninth Prince said what he came here for. He wanted to take Shu for a walk, and she immediately agreed to it. Younger brother Shui asked her why the Ninth Prince was going into the room with her. The sister reassured her brother that the head had told her to receive His Highness properly. She must not disgrace herself, and he should have been a good boy, and go out to play. Of course he was worried about his sister going dangerously alone with a stranger. His sister assured him that he was in danger, not his little sister. When the prince is already in the room, opened the window immediately, Shu decided to close it. After all, His Highness is still weak, and he shouldn't have created a draft. Well, suddenly he noticed one badge that was right on the wall. When he made her, the girl herself remarked that she wanted to go to the academy. Of course the prince was surprised to hear such loud words. He was surprised that the girl had provoked her brother to enter the competition. Then she explained that defeating her family was only the first step. He didn't understand where so much smugness came from. After all, she hadn't been so brave in front of her family, and she'd almost been killed in that shop. But they're like grasshoppers on a string together. Maybe His Highness helped her. Even he was interested, for she interested him, in dining at the mansion, the king's. But she said she wasn't interested in power struggles and intrigue, and besides, she's already His Highness's physician, and he'd better not cross the line. Well, suddenly the prince started coughing. Why did Shu worry about him, and warned him that it's better not to go out? After all, he needs to recuperate. She can't treat him right now. The day of the competition came. One man ordered all the boys, sons, and daughters of the clan to go up to the wrestling ground and pick out their appropriate weapons. Zhu realized that ever since the principal bet her 1 million gold, He too had become a target for ridicule, so she told those guys who laughed at him that just because they like to judge strangers and tell other people what to do, it doesn't mean they're weaker. She's still stronger and better than a lot of them. These guys can only talk trash and wuss, but when she looks at them, she realizes all she sees is scum. One of the guys just started laughing back, wouldn't want to listen to her anymore. If she defeats anyone, he'll be on his knees barking like a dog. He promised everyone around him. The prince looked at the girl and realized that she was protecting him from them, but when they scolded her, she kept quiet. He had never met such a beautiful girl. And so the fight began. The guys started fighting, and the second level of chi purification also lost the third tier as well. The last guy couldn't believe that he was able to be defeated without an use of aura. Even the girl herself noted that she just wanted him to kneel down and apologize to her and the ninth prince for what she had allowed earlier. And then she would be able to ask him. So he did, and he got up on the clinic and apologized. He underestimated her and insulted her for nothing. The head was told they'd run out of challengers. All others have been defeated. If no one else shows up and they declare the girl the winner. The first mistress begged the corner that if only her son was here, he would have defeated that filthy girl. It would be no disgrace for her to win. But unfortunately, the man stood his ground now. He was beaten powerless. All he could do was watch. So they decided to name a winner. And then before announcing the winner, Lin stopped the man. She said it was impossible to judge Shu as the winner. She hadn't even fought an equal opponent. A girl named Xiao appeared and was 19 years old, and also had a 6-level Qi refining level. Immediately challenged the main character to a fight. The people around were also surprised. After all, she is the niece of the First Lady. One man heard that she had recently ascended the 6th level of refinement, and she is the strongest girl with a born talent. They were sure that the protagonist without aura wouldn't put up a fight against a level 6, and she would definitely lose. Zue only laughed at such actions. After all, there was no one left in the family who could fight. Did not decide to use this girl, it was a huge shame for them. Lin noticed that Xiao is her cousin and they are almost family. Of course she can be involved, and if Shui is scared, she can say so and the competition is not over. Zhu was well aware that her Tang Sec technique had reduced the expenditure of aura within the token, and one, it was still practically depleted. It would be hard for an untrained body to deal with an opponent at the 6th level. The assistant principal was well aware that this girl was clearly not in a good position. After all, Xiao is remote. But the prince had faith in his doctor. If she accepted the challenge, she must win. The people around were surprised that Shu had agreed to fight against a level 6. In her condition, she would obviously die. Lin also asked her cousin to hit the main character and beat her as hard as she could, to bury her right here. Only then will her brother be avenged. Xiao warned Shui that it was not her intention to bully her weak points, and she could only use 30% of her strength and let Shui make the first moves. And since they're competing, cousin can fight openly honest and doesn't need to humiliate Shui. Xiao attacked first. Point 1 destroyed Shua's sword. Zhu touched the ground and began to emit a yellow color. And you're the ability, she's so direct to cousin. And after that, the female fainted and could no longer fight. Lin couldn't believe that her cousin had fallen victim to Zhuai's tricks. Only the 9th prince among all the people could recognize what his doctor had just used. It was the divine soul technique. The attack of a divine soul is possible only if there is a very strong soul. If the difference between the souls is not great and the strength cannot be controlled, both will lose. A person who chooses to use a soul must be very good at controlling their aura. And the girl herself realized that the power of the soul attack she had used was the highest of her now Shni level, which meant she had damaged her aura. Therefore, the prince was very happy because there are so many surprises in this girl, which is in no hurry to discover. Lin immediately rushed towards Shui. She wanted to know how her cousin had just been defeated. Surely it must have been some unfair method. But Lin had to prove that Shui hit unfairly first, or she could be the one who did it unfairly. You're your own high-level fighter against her. A counter came in and wanted to stop the argument. He ordered that it was already over, so there was no need for any more arguments. The girl won and earned her victory. He saw that she had used a soul attack to turn her opponent around. Using her soul power with her qualifications is already some backtracking, not to mention that she used her soul power at the Jidan stage. Zhu realized that the crowd was easy to fool, but the oldest was difficult, so she had to think of another way. So it turned on the acting. After spitting out the blood, She announced the decision that she had to use the power she'd accumulated over a lifetime, and she'd lost almost all of it. She started to feel like she was losing consciousness, and the prince caught her just in time. The elder decided to apologize directly to the ninth prince, and they also welcomed him here. Lin didn't understand why the ninth principal appeared at every crucial moment. She suspected that Xue had simply seduced him, with his leafy tricks. The ninth prince had hoped to see a fair fight, but was shocked at how the elder of such a famous clan belittled the virtues of his men. The elder explained that Xue had also used a dishonorable technique, even if it took her effort and the family was disgraced, and became a bad example for the rest of the nobles. Well, as far as the prince himself could see, the girl had won every battle, so she earned her victory through hard work. The elder agreed with the prince, but he realized that he wanted to build up Xue's spiritual attack as a violation of the rules of the contest, so that she would get a bad reputation and half Meryl's temper. But now he fears she will become badly controlled. Xue elder for fair justice, and then she was named the winner. After the fight, the girl felt bad. She realized her body couldn't take it. She would probably take a few days to recover. Suddenly, she slipped and was already starting to fall to the ninth. Prince knew how to catch her. Xue asked the prince if he enjoyed hugging her, but he replied that he just didn't want the doctor to be killed before she cured his illness. The prince took her to her room and laid her on the bed. The girl herself hoped he wouldn't ask her for a spiritual attack. After all, from the looks of it, his skills weren't that bad. He might have even seen her. She thanked him, the help and for standing up for her on the touch, and so she decided to give him his medication. But the king has asked her to take care of herself first, and he will personally wait for her at the palace. Her younger brother ran up to Xue. He was very worried about his big sister, so he asked her how she was feeling. The girl herself said she was fine, and the brother shouldn't worry. Relatives said the girl was brought here by the ninth. They also said she was a lecherous and dirty woman, who would make love to the first man she met. Well, the girl explained that she was just treating the ninth prince for an illness. They're not in a relationship. The younger brother was happy that his relatives were wrong about his older sister. He also asked her to ditch him, and she promised in return that she would never leave him. Rumors have already spread that the ninth prince and Xue are linked by love. A servant informed his master that there was a rumor going around the city that Xue had seduced the prince into a relationship. This girl was the premier minister, with a full level of qi purification, and so the first daughter of Xue, Lin that can find much better or medicinal herbs than Xue. When there was a commotion near the ninth prince's house, Lin hit the Xue. The servant immediately began to count her Xue, and started shouting at Lin, and warned her that the first daughter of the prime minister was sitting in front of her. She would be the future ninth prince. Lin was very surprised. From this servant's words, then she didn't need the ninth prince anymore. She would be competing with the prime minister's daughter. So she bowed her head and welcomed the daughter of the prime minister, and told her that fate had brought them together on this day, and she had something to tell her. That the ninth prince was conjured by her unfit sister Xue. He supported her in their family competition. Without him, she wouldn't have won. Lin said about her sister that she was a total loser, the scum of the family. She seduced the prince on purpose. She was to be sent to the head of the city according to the treaty, and used as a furnace. But now, under the prince's protection, no one can touch her. Abruptly, Servant Lin pulled her in the other direction because they had to hurry and would be very angry if they weren't late. Xue but lastly said that Xue would regret what she did to the prince, so useless according to her sister, that she was sold as a furnace, and that's why she's ready to destroy it. After all, in this world everyone must be in their place. The fate of a girl is to become the expenditure of a resource, that's all. Later, Cousin woke up in her bed. A servant brought her tea and medicine, which she must drink. After all, Xue's attack that day had rendered her unconscious for 2 days. After hearing this, the girl abruptly got up from the bed and was shocked. After all, she didn't believe that Xue had used a spiritual attack. Then the servant explained that it was all told to them by the elder. Then it was no surprise to the girl herself that she lost. Cousin suspected it was all that when they were at the market, it was Xue milk to buy some special herbs, but she decided to ask her personally. Xue was holding a very ordinary crystal, but she didn't understand how it could be used to kill her brother. At one point, the girl herself started coughing when she opened the window. Then the servants who were near her guarded her and took her away from there. After all, you can't get sick with a cloud, and they also asked her to close the window. After a while, the main character's younger brother came running in. The servants immediately began to worry about him and ask him what he would like to eat. There's some leftover food from yesterday in the kitchen and they can bring it. And the boy was surprised at such an impetus. After all, usually the maids ignored him, but now they were very different. Zhu was fine with everything. After all, if they treat them so well, they fear nothing. They belong to a noble family. After she won the competition, the servants wanted to get close to her. She's the pride of the family now, and no one dares to ignore her. When her younger brother decided to leave the house with his servants, his older sister shouted at him to grab some dates and cakes on the way back, frosting. Zhu saw cousin and asked her why she came. The girl herself replied that the main character, given her low level, was easily released by a spiritual force, so she wondered how such a thing was possible. The cousin replied that it didn't matter to the others. If the head heroine told her his secret, she will not hold a grudge against her and will not demand a rematch. One look at the protagonist made it clear that all she wanted was money in return. After all, telling a secret cultivation method isn't that easy. Besides, as she remembers, and not with her far from being friends, the cousin replied that she didn't know at the time that Lin wanted her dead. She thought it was just a joke. As far as the protagonist could remember, she and her cousin didn't have a bloodline, plus she refused to kill her. Well, if the protagonist isn't going to fight her sister, it's not good for sisters to lie to each other like that. But if she does, cousin's secrets will keep her from telling anyone. The head dirt realized that even though she was with her sister's Lin, wouldn't let her kill herself. Cousin also asked about another rumor, which is that the main character is having an affair with the 9th prince. After all, cousin used to like him too. The 9th prince is a rare genius. He's already reached the 3rd level of soul nucleation with his codes. She also likes his theory on martial arts, but now the 9th prince has changed a lot. When the protagonist asked what he had changed into, well, cousin wasn't her rival, so I'm not jealous, she's just interested in what's going on between them. The main character replied that she admires the 9th prince as a strong man, but they don't have a love relationship. They're not even friends, they're just business partners. So cousin asked her friend what love was, and if she had ever loved anyone. Then she remembered the last time her lover had approached her. The one who said he didn't want to hurt her literally gutted her in the end. So she told her cousin that she doesn't know what love is. She wants to love. All she wants now is to go to the Black Feather Academy. She didn't care about that family right now. After all, her ideal is the protagonist. Then suggested that she join forces with her to get into the academy. And she finally understood the meaning of the saying, not a permanent woman. Shui arrived at the king's palace. After all, she was going to pay a personal visit to the head of the family. If Lin didn't want to get involved in this mess, then she would have little trouble getting back. Lin replied that no one knows the protagonist better than she does. There was no need to worry because she persuaded her to change her mind. The head of the family came to see him. At first, the physician was concerned about his master's health. After all, he had promised him to find another way of extraction. Shui came to the head and greeted him. Unfortunately, she was delayed and didn't get to greet him properly. She came here uninvited, but others met the second lady and the Nangong families, so they came together to visit the town head. Lin fell to her knees and announced that she had come here for a question. The city lord had been searching for Furnace for many years, and naturally knew how rare true bodies were and how valuable they were. She and the family would like to contribute. They didn't make him an offer. They didn't want to break their promise, all because that her sister was too good. She hadn't finished the 5th level of purification yet, but she was already the strongest. She was able to defeat many of the most grandiose men. That's an indication of her unique body. Therefore, the man should think twice. After all, her sister hadn't broken through the sensation yet, and she was already so strong. And he didn't have his eyes on her himself. When the doctor heard about it, he was very surprised because such a body is very rare. If the city head gets hold of this body, will become much stronger and increase his strength. The furnace that the head of the town needs must be very special if the doctor gets it first. Then he's a winner. The doctor later had a plan on how to get this girl and happily reported it to his master. After a while, the first mistress came to the elder. Then the man told her that if she came here about the competition, she should leave. Right now, the most honorable person in the family is Shui. He won't change his mind. The woman realized that, fortunately, Lin convinced the town head about the furnace. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got rid of the curse. Moreover, it wasn't just Xue who had changed. She informed her head that he was right, she was too stupid. She will never make a mistake like that again. To get rid of the misunderstanding, she proposes to have a celebration, to make it up to Xue. Already at the pharmacy, Xue was looking for a book. She couldn't figure out why anyone in her body was absorbing energy. She's already reached the 5th level of purification, but for some reason she still doesn't have a fluctuating aura. For this non-forite tablet is bottomless. She didn't know how long it would take to fill it. The spiritual energy in the jade token is not hers. She needs to find ways to stop her spiritual roots. Then she won't be hindered by this strange jade token. In addition, she was unable to find herbs to restore spiritual roots in the market. Even a noble and wealthy family does not have the necessary materials. What if her little brother brought her food? After all, after the family competition, the girl herself did not leave the pharmacy. Not even eating if he did not bring food. Then it would be even worse. He also swept up as he heard that Auntie had gone to the head. She had decided to have a celebration in honor of the main character's victory. But the protagonist was well aware that her aunt probably just wanted to set something up for the holidays. But she was already strong enough to get round all their tricks, so your brother needn't have feared. I won't hurt her, she'll keep her cool, but at least let them try to hurt her. Then she'll show what she's capable of. Our brother was upset because he could not help his sister, because he is a watermelon for her, and she could easily get into trouble. But the sister said the guy was the only one she trusted completely, and that was very important. And if anything goes wrong over the holidays, he has to take the ring and go to the 9th prince. It'll help him. And the girl herself realized that she must cure the 9th prince as quickly as possible, and then she would, as a reward, be able to ask me for medicine that would cure herself. Already on the mountain, the girl was massaging the 9th prince. After brewing the herbs, it is better to rub them into the body immediately, and for the best results, you should massage the appropriate acupuncture points. And after the point are distributed throughout the body, suddenly the girl accidentally touched the guy's spot, and so he pulled her with him and asked her why she had come here only to treat him. She answered that she herself was concerned about his health. However, these herbs only treat the symptoms and not the first cause. For a complete cure, it is necessary very rare, and the price an ingredient. After all, these herbs are about as expensive as those needed to restore spiritual roots, and they are all very rare. The 9th prince told the girl that there would be an auction soon, and there might be something she wants. The prince decided to leave. After all, he's a very busy man and replied that some of the time he was resting, of course, but he still had a lot of things to do. The main character even noticed it, because this prince is actively involved in palace affairs, and perhaps it's to her advantage. That was good, but she didn't invite him to lunch today. The Shui maid said that the prince only spends time with Shui. In all that time, he never once approached the princess herself, but she didn't care about a dead woman. The 9th prince would only be hers, she said. The day of the feast had come. The protagonist didn't understand what was going on here because it was a family party, but their elders were nowhere to be found. Suddenly, the first lady came to her. She said that today's feast was also to make amends to the girl. After all, this aunt has always treated her with prejudice, so she made that the main heroine does not hold a grudge against her for all this. And her aunt shouldn't have made her brother's life difficult either, nor should she be blamed for her brother's disappearance. And the aunt was guilty, and apologized to her, even though my aunt specifically accused Mo of stealing. Her brother was beaten and inventoried in a shed. That's not how even the worst servants are treated. She ordered the Lin of her servants to fight her, even though they were much stronger than her. What's more, her aunt ordered them to kill the protagonist. So, the protagonist was very interested in how the aunt was going to make amends. Even if she starts crawling on her knees in front of her, it won't be enough for me. The first mistress was shocked at all the information she had just been told. She didn't understand why this Xue wouldn't continue to play the gentle, pitiful girl. The woman herself couldn't kneel down with her status. Now the whole family is counting on the main character to bring them fame, so she didn't understand why she had to act so pathetic. This woman started screaming that she regretted the way she treated the main character, and such even the people around were surprised that the first mistress began to kneel. But the main heroine replied that if the apology is not sincere, what difference does it make whether she is on her knees? The first mistress realized that even if she was humiliated and dishonored and it didn't matter, after all, the protagonist wouldn't live long anyway. The woman decided to pour a drink for the girl. When she took a closer look at it, she noticed that there was no I yes, and so she doubted her aunt had reconciled. She must be up to something. Suddenly, the lights went out, and something approached very quickly like the main character. Just then, Hermasha's brother really started to worry about his sister. He remembered her words that if something happens really on holidays, we should take the ring and go to the 9th prince. He did so. He ran in and the guard restored him. He didn't understand how a child could come into the king's house and cause a scandal. The younger brother informed the aide of the king that his sister had been kidnapped. The aide was very surprised. I couldn't believe it was possible. The younger brother told me how he'd just seen his sister disappear from the party hall, and no one is looking for her. The assistant asked the boy to calm down because the 9th prince would find her when he returned. He'll send him a message and his sister will obviously be fine. The protagonist was sitting in a sack, and she realized that she had been put into the sack without the slightest effort. The man was much stronger than Kuzina. He had been dragging her for a long time, and they had apparently already left the city. At one point, someone started walking. She didn't know what was going on, and that it was best to pretend she was unconscious. We took the bag off. The girl saw the only son of the head of the city. He was 20 years old, and he had a soul-budding stage. He noticed that the protagonist really has a beautiful face, and it's also said that her body is yin. If she becomes his furnace, he will double his cultivation. I didn't expect the head son to be so unashamed, but the guy wondered how the main character knew about him. Previously, the servants were serving the protagonist. Then the girl asked her servants where they wanted to send her, and was told that she was to be sent to the house clubs of the city. Many women would like to get there. When asked why, and they answered that though the man was an old man, he was very rich. His house was literally made of mush. A servant girl heard there was a golden lion's head in every room. Entering his house is like marrying the emperor. The girl knew the guy didn't own the place and had no right to touch her. Then the only son decided to show, for example, how he would go out to touch the girl. Well, when he realized the girl was very brave, he realized he just wanted to scare her. He really wouldn't dare even touch her. It's the first time he's seen such a brave and intelligent woman. After all, he might not touch her, but the genus head is so eager to get her that even if he unties the rope, she won't be able to get out of this room. Then the girl explained that there was no need to worry about her, and it was better to worry about herself. Suddenly, the guy started to feel very dizzy. That's when the girl realized that if she were him, she'd rush to the head of town for the antidote. The more he delays, the deeper the poison gets. The boy realized it was no surprise that she was so at ease when she was in his power. The girl took the rope out of her mouth. Luckily, she was in the habit of keeping the poison with her, and the rumored head of the city treasured his son, and wondered if he'd have time to get rid of the poison. The slicing head of the town attacked the protagonist. Standing in front of her, a man asked how she dared. This man was at the 8th step of the golden core. The girl replied that the head of the city had come sooner than she expected, and it's not good to start introductions with a bang. The man realized that the girl had poisoned his son. To get his attention, she knew she couldn't leave, so she decided to sit here and wait for her death. The elder asked the girl if she was not afraid that he might get rid of her family. She replied that with the way her family was treating her, he could kill them right now. Her younger brother, on the other hand, must go in search of the 9th prince. If she holds the chapter, there's a chance of victory. She warned the head that if he wanted his son to live, he'd better let her go or I'd penetrate his internal organs and she wouldn't be able to enlarge him. In one move, the old man tied the girl with a rope. He told her that her family had deceived him once before. Now she had hurt his son too, and she would have to pay for it. The protagonist explained that she didn't want to make another enemy. If the old man lets her go, she will help him get rid of another problem. Since she and the Nangan families, the old man didn't understand how she could know how to help him. Suddenly, the man started choking. The girl surmised that if she could poison his son, she could cure him. If he didn't believe it, he could try it himself. At the same time, the prince fought a lion, and he defeated it by the fact that, judging by the aftermath, there's another demonic beast bigger than him. Suddenly, an eagle flew in, who brought him a letter. The protagonist created the pictograph using rope and her mouth. Just then, she came up with the idea of practicing the workings of her seals on the city's head. After he saw the 6-figure formation, he was surprised he informed her that he was actually blind. The girl did receive the true teaching. At first, Zue didn't understand what the man was talking about. After all, wasn't it the best spell of the Black Feather Academy that everyone was in awe of? What the girl had said was exactly what the elder had learnt about these marvelous, and still under the guidance of the divine messenger and from above the realm. Formation, he had only been led to see it once. In that case, Shu said that it was possible that she was taught by the same person as the elders. In fact, she didn't understand how someone from her Tan clan could learn the 7-star formation's Elder Xing after all. The Black Feather Academy should be involved in this. Then the man said that given the knowledge of the girl, he would not ask unnecessary questions. He reverently hoped that she would forgive him and help him to get rid of this problem. He would definitely thank her in the future. She said she could temporarily use her herbs to contain the poison, and after a while, it would cure him completely. But this would require very valuable and rare herbs, as well as pure black crystals, which would require considerable expense. The man promised not to worry, money is not a problem. She will get as much as she needs. The whole lord of the city is indeed generous, and their offense can be settled. When the 9th prince burst into the manor, he saw the head of the town and the protagonist drinking tea. The 9th prince was disappointed. After all, her brother had said she was in trouble, but it didn't look like it. The head of the city welcomed the 9th prince, and also the girl herself made her homage. Then the head of the city asked what was the reason for the prince's visit to him. Then the 9th prince ran up to the girl and took a handkerchief and touched her neck, and asked why she was always in some kind of trauma. He's very worried about her. The son of the head of the city realized he was facing the 9th prince and Shui, but didn't fully understand the relationship between them. He informed her that he still remembered that not too long ago, the city lord was worried about the master's health and came to visit the city master. If the 9th lord knew that the city lord had broken into the city lord's house today for the sake of the master, he was afraid he would have had other ideas. The 9th principal inquired some method of relating to their case. After all, the mistress does not see anyone, but what to do about the night kidnapping he did not know himself. The son informed the 9th prince that he was right, for the boys were overly concerned about the mistress. Now that the misunderstanding was cleared up, rather than send the girl home. The son asked the protagonist if she was ready to leave. She asked if his stomach was okay. It pissed her off even more. She had the nerve to mention it, but his father had already helped him out. After all, who would have thought that a poisoned man would have consequences? The protagonist said goodbye to the town lord. She said that it was late in the evening and she thought that the head of the city might let the girl stay the night and return home tomorrow. He was happy to tell her she could stay, and tomorrow he would escort her home, in person. The 9th principals realize it is a girl but demands, so he wondered what kind of pact she had made with the lord of the city. The lord of the city handed her a huge bag of money. It was enough money to buy rare herbs on the black market. That's when the 9th prince appeared in her room. That the lord of the city not only didn't use the girl himself for food, but even gave her so much money. And it looks like he came here for nothing. The main character told me that she was also afraid of dying, that all the effort would be lost here. So double insurance isn't so bad. Suddenly, the protagonist decided to leave. Informed that the wind was too strong here, she remembered that she had been invited by the lord of the city so that she wouldn't understand why her heart beat longer when she was near the 9th prince, and that he wanted to go then. Mo asked the guard to call the head of the city. After all, he promised to do everything for him. Well, the guard threw the boy off and informed him that he would not be able to get inside the manor. Just as the guard was about to swing again to hit the boy, he was stopped by Shui. Her little brother immediately became shy because his sister saw him like this. But instead of scolding her little brother, she went over to him and hugged him. She knew he was worried about her, so she risked coming alone. Her younger brother was glad his sister was alive. Then another guard came running in and ordered the arrest of these guys who had invaded the residence of the town mayor and were to be handed over to the torture chamber. The 9th princess's aide said she'd deal with them, and the guards should leave. The mayor himself appeared, who ordered him to stop. He punched the guard afterwards and called him an idiot because he was insulting his guest. The 9th prince's aide said that after her younger brother found out she was stolen from the party, he looked everywhere for her, and the assistant himself was worried that something might happen to him, so he followed him to the end. Then the protagonist looked at her little brother's legs and saw how damaged they were. The head of the city said that he would immediately call the best or healers, and the girl herself could stay here for the time being. Sue realized that it was good to have someone to take care of, Now he is her little brother that she wants to protect, and she will kill anyone who hurts him. So the girl asks the ninth prince's aide to pick up the boy tomorrow and leave with him. And the girl herself is in for a tough fight. The next day there is a family gathered. Discussion because no one knew that the head of the city will not sit the main character and used as an oven. Lin, because her poor sister, she's been taken away and she doesn't know what's wrong with her. The first mistress also noted that none of them wanted her yet, but in the end, she gave her virginity to her family. Perhaps she will become the wife of the lord of the city. Then she could be considered a success. But suddenly, an assistant came running in to tell me that the main character had arrived, and she met her family with a smile. Lin ran up. She was being deprived of the face of the town head, since she still had strength after spending the night with him. A pure body was the easiest to cultivate, but since she was already impure, her sister was afraid that it would be even harder for her to improve. But Shue hit her sister. The first mistress asked if the main character was afraid that the head would blame them for her running away. She could easily ruin their family. But unexpectedly, the head of the city also came to this room. Lin realized that the town leader himself had come to punish her, and now they would see how her sister's life would end. City manager advised that there is no need to be polite. He was late, so he misunderstood them. The elder informed the town head that he had traveled a long way and asked him to sit down and rest first. But the town head replied that he had sent the protagonist home to be treated for a poison attack, so they are also his benefactors. Well, who would have thought their clan would turn into such a dirty group of people? The elder said that since the main character helped the lord of the city deal with his illness, it is very good. As the daughter of the family, he hopes for her tolerance. The protagonist said he had important things to do. He doesn't need to stay here because of her, so he agreed to leave the estate. Already in private, she said that when they solved the misunderstanding, they had not managed to solve her misunderstanding after all. Lin ordered her sister not to cause any trouble, for there was no head of the city or ninth prince here. Who could save her? Zhui called her sister too stupid, so she was going to clarify something to her. And personally, she intended to destroy their entire rotten family, all of them one by one. Wei, they set her up and tried to use family law to punish her. It's true that they incited cousin to teach her a lesson on the tournament stage. After all, Lin couldn't have known that the protagonist was in the town head's manor. Lin freaked out with a point and started to stop. Didn't Zhu want her to admit she was wrong? The first mistress tried to stop her daughter, and tried to calm him down because the woman had a way to deal with the protagonist. There was no need to rush, but the girl realized that the protagonist had also stepped on others to get ahead. Now it was her turn to decide through her and rise up. Even she could use this opportunity to get rid of her for good. She asked her mom not to worry because she had already paid the pill to increase her cultivation level. Now she is already at the 5th level of spiritual power. She wants to see how Shue will resist. The first mistress realized that the protagonist and her daughter were competing, and it was normal in their skills. If she could use Mila to suppress Shue, it would be a good idea, but perhaps Lin had something more powerful in mind. The protagonist has decided she's taking on the challenge, signing a life and death contract and not having to fight to the end. Already the girl had asked her father to lend them his sword. After all, today she will always repay the protagonist for everything she did. The guys started fighting. Shu, her sister, is an animal. After all, she uses spiritual power without spells. At one point, the protagonist was attacked so badly that her mouth bled. The first mistress was overseeing the whole thing, who noted to me they had signed a life and death contract. They could not break the rules of their ancestors until one of them won. Lin stood there and laughed. After all, it was not produced, so she wondered what could be said, but lastly, her sister. Zhu, is that really all a girl can do? After all, she's already disappointed her. Lin didn't believe it was possible. After all, the main character of the heroine became back on her feet again. So the girl decided to take another pill. And because of this, she had to reach the highest level of purification. People around the realization that one more pill would destroy a girl's spiritual roots by dramatically raising her levels. After a long fight, the main character pinned her sister down, and it was pointed out that if the cultivators rely only on pills and talismans, they will become as pathetic as their sister. Lin that her sister was born a genius, and she knows nothing of other people's pain. No spiritual roots. Lin began to recite the spell. The protagonist immediately realized what it meant. She is trying to blow herself up and thus her opponent. The encounters intervened, who pierced the girl's arm with his spear. He reported that Lin had been swallowing the pills too greedily for her spiritual powers to dissipate. Soon, the pills would have the opposite effect. Lin realized she had waited too long. That's why her sister was lucky she would have lost. The protagonist said that her spiritual roots were also taken away, but she continued cultivating step by step, so her sister has no right to waistcoat herself for her origins. There's Mum. She didn't understand why the main character beat up her sister, why she didn't just sit her down. She'd already turned her into a cripple, and now she was bullying her. Zhu that it wasn't her colleague who made her, and what they did to her in her own family, it's much worse. Zhu showed the first mistress the treaty. After all, Lin herself had abandoned him, and ate those pills even if she dies here today, she deserved it. And the mother herself, the worthless one, who didn't talk her out of it. Then father decided to hit his daughter, but he was stopped by the 9th prince, who decided to intervene. The head asked the 9th prince not to interfere in this family matter, so even if the emperor came today, he would personally deal with this unworthy daughter. The protagonist didn't realize she was good enough at her job for her father to recognize her. She thought that if she was of value to the Atisa family, she would be accepted and loved. But even if she became all-powerful, all her strength would be enough for even a small fraction of her father's love. So she asked her father how valuable she was to the family. The man said quite, but now she's deservedly one of the best in the family. But that doesn't give her the right to bully the weak. Shui started laughing. She asked her son where he was when she was broken and humiliated, and on the tip-off of the Lin who wanted her dead. And her self-defense became an excuse to bully the weak. Her father is useless because of it. Since they were ribbing us with her sister, she had to finish her off. But the protagonist's previous body stopped her. The protagonist didn't understand why she couldn't control her body, but only watch. The 9 principal came the girl to himself, and reported that he had accepted the cause and effect of the matter. And according to the laws of the kingdom of the Black Feather, the Lin must die. They must both be banished along with all their relatives. The father and mother tried to justify that it was really a private family matter, but the 9th prince did not want to listen to an internal family affair, but they would not explain those wounds they had inflicted on his subordinates. He repeated again that his physician is this king's man. If anyone touched her, they would be sorry. Mo sat in his room and studied the letters. He realized that he couldn't save his sister this time. It was because of his weak body. That's why he was so easily bullied by the others. Then to me tomorrow, the 9th prince came into the room and carried the unconscious girl. He put her to bed, and then the younger brother asked the 9th prince what he had done to her. But instead of answering, he simply asked to stay with her. After all, the 9th prince had to leave and the girl needed her little brother more than anything else. A couple of days later, the prince wanted to go into the girl's room, and immediately she opened the door. Embarrassed, she closed it immediately, and hid herself with a blanket. She knew where the 9th had come from yesterday, and she didn't hold back her emotions. She was disturbed by what had happened yesterday. She cried on his shoulders, but realizing that the girl was embarrassed by her memories. Goes, and the prince decided to pretend that he got drunk last night and forgot all about it. The 9th of April already filled the girl in that there should be an auction today. Zhu realized that most likely the 9th prince inside was very sweet and gentle. The guys came inside auction. The main hygienist realized that today she was obliged to find materials to make a spiritual root. Zhu thought the auction would be magical and there'd be a decent amount of stuff. It's just a vegetable market. Then the principal noticed that don't underprice this place. You can find unseen recipes and remedies here. Just from hearing Zhu's words, she suspected that she could find a recipe to cure Mo. Zhu approached the vendor a little later. He asked her not to pass by because he had rare herbs and prescriptions, and she obviously hadn't seen such things before. She asked the vendor for a prescription for children with Fuqi disease. After all, her brother suffers from hemoptysis in the middle of the night, and often passes out for days on end. The man was surprised because only adults suffer from this. They don't have a cure for children. He doesn't have a cure, but it sounds pretty mysterious. Although he'd heard of similar symptoms. It's his treasure, she can try it, and he doesn't guarantee a complete cure, but it's definitely effective. He pulled out a piece of paper. He said it was a prescription he'd received in exchange for a lot of money, and he wouldn't sell it normally, but if she wanted it. For 10,000, he was willing to sell it. After shopping, the main character realized she had to go home and prepare the recipe. and the money from the town leader had already been spent. She didn't know if the remaining funds would be enough to buy the herbs she didn't need. The protagonist met a prince who took her to another place. The view from the top of the auction was beautiful. After all, the 9th prince is not in the crowd. A vendor started auctioning off loose tian. It has the effect of restoring the body. It is the essence of the snow on top of the mountain of tian. Better medicinal materials for the form of spiritual root, from 500 coins. That's what she wanted, and she offered 1,000 coins. Finally, she waited for the rare ingredients for recovery. But then another girl wanted to give 5,000 coins for this root. Maine didn't realize how come the nemesis of the original owner of the body was also here. The protagonist realized that she had already spent half the money on a prescription for her brother, but this girl deliberately raises the price to make her spend more. Then the 9th principal offered 100,000 coins. In the end, this herb was sold to the 9th prince. He gave paper money available only to the imperial family and the nobility close to them. It could only be exchanged in the palace. Of course, the protagonist was glad she was getting that weed, but she didn't understand how she could spend 100,000. There are only so many good herbs you can buy with that money. Even with a prescription, you can buy a lot more. The protagonist promised to use this herb wisely and make it much more expensive by a factor of 10. Suddenly asked the 9th prince directly if he was in love with her, since he was spending so much money on her. After all, he not only spent money on her but also saved her life more than once, and she's fine that she should be grateful to him. So he shouldn't worry she uses all her knowledge to help him stop as soon as possible. The man was surprised to find out that she understands his condition and knows how he has to take care of his body. Suddenly the roof began to fall in the place of the head of the city. My son was sitting eating a biscuit and suddenly the biscuit fell from his hands, and he asked what was going on here. A servant explained to him that there might be a secret place nearby. The son realized that it looked like his father was right. There would soon be a secret place in the city. He ordered the servant to wait here for him. They should tell his father that he must hurry to find the secret place. Suddenly, the most important character found herself in an obscure place. But if she remembered correctly, there was supposed to be an underwater auction house. But now, everything had changed. She immediately realized it was a secret place. A secret realm is an accidental occurring place all over the world. Usually, such a secret realm represents a possession left by a great power, and one can leave it after the possession is removed. Behind the protagonist, her lover appeared, telling her that he had been waiting for her. She realized it was just an illusion, she couldn't be fooled. She attacked the illusion immediately. But the man stopped the sword with 2 fingers. The protagonist remembered what she said about herself, that she would not be anxious. But in the end, it still happens because she is not anxious nor hate. The heart moves freely, and the deeper the feelings, the harder it is to get rid of them. She realized there were some very noisy illusions in charge, arrogant and greedy. She was sorry, but in her heart, her ex-man was a dead man. So she killed one of the illusions in succession as well. After she shattered another illusion, she found herself in an incomprehensible place together. But suddenly, the 9th prince himself appeared before her in a different guise.